Howdy folks, and welcome back to another exciting video. Today we're doing something that I've never messed with on the channel before. That is a foreign car. This is a 1981 Nissan 280ZX, 6-cylinder under the hood, and a 5-speed to match behind it. Now this car is rusty, it's rough, it's been sitting for about 15 years, and it's got some quirks to it, I'm not gonna lie. I'll show you here in just a few minutes. But today we're going to try and make this thing run and hopefully pull out of this spot, and hopefully do that for the first time in 15 years. So stick around to the end of the video to see if we can do just that. This car is very small, and unfortunately some bad things have happened to it since it was off the road. Now the guy I got it from did not have a key. It was a family member's car, so instead of like trying to get it unlocked, he just breaks the glass out and cuts the ignition switch out, and that's why there's wires hanging down. So we'll probably have to repair that, figure out what to do there. Other than that, he also gutted the interior, like all the seats got pulled out, the carpet got cleaned up because he said glass was everywhere, but I still see a lot of glass. And he pulled the center console out. A lot of stuff just happened, but it takes gear, and I think it's a 5-speed. I don't know the shift pattern, to be honest. You can't see it on the top of the shift knob. It's kind of dirty, and by kind of I mean very dirty, unfortunately, but I think we can fix a lot of this stuff, get it up to the house, and maybe clean it up when we get there. The glove box full of rat's nest, as you should have. That's to be expected, but it's okay. I mean, it's white, it's red interior. I've always had an affinity for these little Z cars. Mom used to have one and I loved it. Hers was an 88 though, this one being an 81. Still has the round headlights, no pop-up, so I like that. But I want to see if we can make it run and drive out of here, and then cut donuts. The interior is very rough, unfortunately, and you can see right here, I mean, there's a hole right there, that's rust, like that's the ground, so pretty rough, unfortunately, but it's okay. I mean, this seat turned out all right. Driver's seat, not so much. But I mean, if we clean the dash up, clean up the interior, clean up a lot of the dirt and dust in it, maybe it won't be so bad. And then back here, a bunch of extra parts. There's a space saver spare tire, a Haynes repair manual, so that's nice to have. Power windows. I think it has everything power as far as I can tell. And this beautiful wing, I love that. I don't know if that's like a turbo car option or what. This isn't a turbo car, but it's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Got this giant exhaust tip, so it's going to be a straight up race car when it runs. I just don't know what happened here. Like, look at the rust. This is pretty bad. Like, it just scaled up really, really awful. Got up under the paint. I don't know. Just really, really bad rust prevention, I guess. But you can see here, it's been off the road since 2007. Quite a long time for this old girl to sit. Probably the worst rust is up in here on this hood. But that's some weird looking rust to me. I don't know, has this car been underwater? Like, what happened? I don't know. Some rust around the front windshield. That's pretty bad. So this car, I don't know. Really not worth fixing, but it's worth getting back running at least. Looks like this fender was replaced at some point. It's got some different color paint on it, a little bit of a weird rust pattern in comparison to the rest of the car. So I don't think it's the original fender, and it's missing the trim as well. So they probably replaced that. Might have gotten a fender bender. Otherwise, it's fairly straight. A little bit of Bondo back here. You can see that's a hole, so that's good. That's really good. Anyway, what have I gotten myself into? I don't know. So for now, let's pop this hood, see what we have under here, and get a little bit of progress going and see if we can make this thing fire off. Oh boy, this looks good and complicated. For all my Z-Car fans out there, I apologize for not knowing everything about these things, but here we go. Looks like it's a bare bones early style fuel injection system. Looks like they have already cut the fuel line, so I'm assuming this is the supply. If we trace that out, I think that might be the regulator right there. Kind of hard to tell. And then this is the return. So they probably tried to get this thing to run, because here's a fuel filter. Yeah, because I would assume that this is the supply side. They probably tried to get this thing to run in the past, but it looks fairly simple as far as making it operate. If I had to guess, that this is probably the same engine that they had from an earlier model with a carbureted system, because we're still running a distributor with an external coil, so that's pretty simple, pretty easy to work with in case something goes wrong. And a lot of mess as far as vacuum hoses, fuel lines, all that good stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going on right here. And I got to noticing how complicated just the throttle is on this thing. See, it goes like over here. Like it's got cruise control on it too. I just noticed that. There's a cable that goes over here right to that. And then this is your throttle mechanism. See it rotating? All this spins and then opens the throttle body way down there. Isn't that wild? That's so much effort to make all of this work, all of this mechanism go into place and do the function of working the throttle. Being a 5-speed, this looks to be a hydraulic clutch. The pedal goes to the floor, so I'm going to assume that this is completely empty. Oh yeah, that looks great. Ooh, that's really bad. Probably going to have to replace that before we can even drive it. Okay, well, we'll just put that back. Pretend we didn't see that. Other than that, I don't think it's very complicated. I mean, as long as we get power to our coil, to our distributor, get good fuel pressure, get the right amount of fuel pressure, it should self-regulate itself and then go straight back to the return. So we're going to do a little bit of rigging here with our fuel system. But before we do all that, let's drop a battery in here and see if we can even make this thing turn over. Well, I'd really like to check the oil in this thing, but I don't know where the dipstick is. I mean, hello? Does anybody know where it's at? I guarantee you the comment section's angry at me right now. Where is the dipstick tube? I'd like to make sure you have oil before I try to start you. Oh, it's right here. How much you got? Looks full. It says it's full. So we're going to try it. We have spark. We're going to have a fuel system here in a second. I hope it runs. I really do. Now, unfortunately, the ignition switch was ripped out of the column and cut. So they just stripped all the wires, took them out, and then just was starting it with the wires into there. Now, if they had done all that work and just taken these screws out, 1, 2, they could have put a screwdriver in there and not have to worry about the key. So what I'm going to do is, instead of trying to fiddle with all these wires and figure out which one does what, I'm just going to fix and reconnect all of these. Got these wires all soldered back together. Let's plug this in and see just what happens. I stuck a battery in the car, so I guess that's off. Oh. Hey. Perfect. So when I bought the car, it actually came with a new pump. Now this is, pretty old looking, but it is a pump and it does work. I actually just tested it and it did work. So we're going to use this. I don't think this is a drop-in pump. I believe that this is just like a frame-mounted deal. So I'm going to just set this like right into my fuel jug. I've got an external tank. We'll run our supply line from here to the engine and then run a return back into our fuel jug, just so we bypass every possibility of an issue. I don't want anything getting sucked up from the tank, because I guarantee you it's bad. So we also probably need to check out some of these vacuum hoses. I see a couple of hoses here that look like they're unplugged or just not working right. Could be brittle. There's like 500 miles worth of vacuum hose, so probably need to check all of that. But yeah, what I'm going to do, we'll just go ahead and swap out these fuel hoses real fast and just see if we can make anything hit. Okay, here's what we got planned. This is our new fuel tank, auxiliary tank. I've run a new stretch of hose from the supply line. I'm going to run it directly to our pump here, and then drop this side down into the tank, so that it all should be okay. And then on top of that, I've got our return that I'll hook up to the return side, and then I'll drop right back into the tank itself. So now, if we hook everything up and we did everything right, it should actually work. Let's see if something happens. Whoa! We have a busted fuel hose. Yeah, there's a hole in this fuel line I didn't see until after we got pressure. We'll just cut that. Now let's try that again, but with an actual hose that's decent. Right. Get our power wires hooked up. Don't remember which side goes where. Backwards. Hey, we've got fuel pressure. Check this out. Pump is working, and if we look down in here, this is our return line, and it certainly is returning. So our fuel pressure is working. I don't see any fuel leaks anywhere. So I guess our next course of action is to turn it over. Here we go. Well, not getting anything. Let's double check our spark, make sure that the coil works, and I don't know. I figured it would fire. I thought we had spark, but I guess we didn't. Well, I did a couple things here. I checked the positive wire on the coil here to see if it had 12 volts. Sure enough, it does in the run and the crank position. So I pulled the distributor cap off, and one thing I noticed is that it's not even bolted down, so I have to figure that one out as well. But on top of that, it does spin, but this wire was just dangling. And if I'm not mistaken, that looks exactly like the plug that goes right here. So I'm going to drop this in here. Just so happens it plugs up. Let's see if I can clamp these back together and see if it'll run now. I've been playing around with this thing for a while trying to get it figured out. And off camera, it sputtered and got spark. So I'm going to spin it over and see if it'll run this time. I don't know what I did. I really don't. think it's the timing. The distributor, something's not right with it. I'll just put it that way. Well, it'll run, but for just a couple seconds and then it stalls. I'm wondering if this electric pump that I got with the car isn't actually rated to make this car run. I wonder if it's, building up enough pressure to run, and then as soon as it does, it bleeds off that pressure and then the pump can't keep up. The timing is all over the place because it looks like they replaced the distributor with a different model because the bolt that holds the distributor down is gone. And you could tell that they replaced it because they tried to drill a hole to put a new bolt in. Let me show you what it looks like. I know it's kind of tough to see, but there's like a slide, a little slot that a bolt is supposed to go through, and I just shoved the multimeter probe down in it to keep it from rotating, because as you would crank it, it would start to move the distributor, and the timing would basically adjust itself when you don't want that. This distributor just kind of, see how it does its own little thing? It's because they put a different one in. I don't know what this is out of, but the slide does not line up with the bolt hole in the block. So they tried to drill it out, it didn't work, so they just left it. Not sure what the deal was, but it ran. It's most certainly ran. What I want to do now is verify we have the right amount of fuel pressure. Because again, I don't know if this is the right fuel pump, it was with it, and if this isn't putting out the right PSI, this thing's not going to be able to run. Well, my gauge is broken, but it got up to about 20 PSI before it exploded. So maybe that's enough. I know it's not, but we're gonna try it again. And just floor it and see what happens. Maybe it'll clear itself out. I've got a bad connection here somewhere. I think one of my wires isn't doing so hot. Well, it ran and idled somewhat. I had to keep working the pedal. Probably a good set of spark plugs will go a long way on this thing. But look at that. It sure did it. And it doesn't help that we have about 500 different vacuum leaks across the entire engine. But it ran. It most certainly ran. We got the old girl to run, but I'm a bit suspicious about the condition of the spark plugs. Now, we got probably 3 cylinders firing properly, if I had to guess, and of those 3, it seems like the other 3 want to come in, but it can't. It was popping, it was backfiring, carrying on really loud, and I think that our spark plugs are probably not that great. So let's see what we have from number 1 right here, if this is number 1. I mean, it's not bad, but it's definitely not a new spark plug. So we'll change it out and see how they look in comparison. I mean, they're fouled, but not terrible. But we'll still put a new set on here anyway and just see if that helps our situation. If not, then we'll start inspecting injectors, maybe the distributor again itself. But we're going to just start from the basics and see if we can work our way up and get something working a little bit better here. So that way we can actually drive it for once. Something else we might need to do is actually set number 1 and just see where number 1 is on the distributor. You know, verify our timing order, because the distributor has to go like way out of its realm to even be able to be used. So I'm wondering, you know, being that the distributor has been changed, is it the right place? Is the firing order properly done? Like, there's so many aspects that could be wrong, and it seems a lot of it is ignition related and mainly timing. So if the timing's bad, that could be a problem. That distributor's broke. This spark plug is broken, so I don't know if I just did that. I don't think I did. It was dirty, so that could be a problem there. Broken spark plug is no good. I wonder why some of these spark plug wires have been replaced and some haven't. So I wonder if, you know, they look okay, but could they be messed up on the inside? Is there something wrong? We're gonna, come on. There we go. We're gonna find out here shortly. See how number 3 looks? Just dirty. It's fouled. So, good thing we're replacing some of these. Well, I've capped off vacuum sources that I can find here, and in other places where I can't find the source, I've just taped them off, because right here in the vacuum vents it broke. So I taped it off. The distributor is zip tied down, so maybe it'll actually stay still and won't move the timing while it runs, so that's good. Now let's see if it'll run a little bit better. Too hot. Shut it down. I don't know. I'm not too sure. Again, I don't really know all the ins and outs about these vehicles, but I mean, it's running better per se, but not 100% to where I want it to be. So I'm not sure where else to go. I mean, we could start checking injectors, I guess. Maybe there's a wire that's loose here and there. I think the valves are adjustable on this thing, so might have to check that. I don't know, just some places to start. First off, we need to get some tires on it so we can drive it up to the house. If I can get it to run and then just start it in gear, then I think we can mosey our way up to the building. This wheel got the wrong lug nuts. Like somebody put tapered nuts instead of a shank style. That's good. So these were barely hanging on. That's all it is. That's bad. Probably had maybe -2 threads on it. Yeah, that's really, really dangerous. I hope nobody drove this car like that. Watch this. Off. That's it. That's literally all it was. you know, this tire might actually possibly hold air. Probably not, but might. So we're gonna try and see if we can make it. If not, I have backup tires. Wow. I'm just glad those aren't locked up. See what we can make work here. You know, maybe not. Maybe they won't work. Okay, let's put them in the truck. These have the correct lug nuts. See how much longer it takes to thread that off? That's the correct one there. So we'll have to get some lug nuts for that. Come on, don't do this to me. There we go. May have to bring my other jack down here so that way I can actually lift it up a little bit higher. This one, it might hold air. It just came off the bead back here. We'll try it. We'll certainly try it just to get it rolling because it's going to need a set of 4 tires anyway. So I just want to get it to where I can move it without dragging wheels anywhere. So let's get this up to the house. We'll see if anything happens if I add a little air to these tires. Is this the one that came off the bead? I think it is. Yep. Let's try this one. Bunch of trash in it. Hey! You're holding there. But will it hold long enough? It's got a hole. I can hear the leak, but I can't really see where it's coming from. So I'm going to spray a little Windex on here. It's right there. The whole thing, actually. Oh, well. So pretty much the entire bead. All these bubbles, that's air. Let me check the other side. Yeah. Same story on the other side, not as bad, but you can still see all these bubbles. That's air leaking through the bead, which means no go. But we might be able to bypass this. We have a little technique we can use to get us going. Is so long as no other spots are leaking, we spray the entire sidewall because these are pretty heavily dry rotted. Check for any more bubbles. It looks like it's mostly out of the bead. Okay, so that's good. That's good and bad. I mean, it leaks, but that means that we can fix it. Here's a little trick we're going to work with. Now, it does help to have a tire machine. I've let all the air out and then pulled the tires off of the bead of the wheel. If you don't, a tire shop can do this for you. If your tires look this bad, I wouldn't do this. I would get a new set for sure. But let's say you put a new set of tires on and they leak down around the bead. This is a good way to fix this. Now, tire shops do have like bead sealer, but a lot of times when I've gone to tire shops, I've noticed that they don't clean the bead before they put it on. And that rust behind here, any kind of buildup dirt, that's going to cause the bead to not seal properly. So they'll just put bead sealer and throw it to it until it stops leaking, but that's not a good thing. So first thing we're going to do is sand it. Look at that. That's nasty. Now let's wipe all that down. Get all that excess out of there. Anything that we may have left. guess what? I don't have any bead sealer, but I do have some bearing grease. Look at there. It works. Just going to take a little bit on our finger, go on the inside of the bead, like so. And what that does, it'll fill in any type of imperfections or ridges or raised spots. Like, for instance, if I was using a steel wheel, you know, a lot of times they like to rust, and pitting will occur, and it gets to the point where it can no longer seal to a tire. But I've taken really bad wheels before that you would never think could seal, and they weren't. They couldn't before I did this. But as soon as I put this grease on it, it's like a brand new wheel and tire. So I'm going to do the same thing to the back side, and then we'll try and air it up and see if it works. Tires are as stiff as a board. Let's see if it leaks now around the bead. Looks good to me. It's not losing air. Perfect. So again, I don't recommend doing this. This is not something that you should do to a vehicle you're planning on driving, but just to get this car up here, this will work for, you know, the 200 feet we have to drive it. This is the other tire. I've done the same process. I've, you know, sanded on the bead on both sides and put a little grease on it. This one's probably going to be a lost cause. I don't know. It's been flat for some time. There's a giant gash right here. So if it does hold air, I'll be very surprised. I'm having to use the bead blaster on this one just to get it to where it draws the tire up. If this one doesn't work, I do have a decent extra tire I could use that might hold air. I don't know about the condition of it either. So we're just going to see if this will do anything. I don't think it's the tire not wanting to hold air. I think it's more of the tire not wanting to stretch to push itself out on the wheel. So probably just going to have to toss this one anyway. Like I said, I do have another one, so let's just go ahead and pop this one off and go grab the other. This was literally laying in the field. No idea what it come off of, but it'll do the trick. It's a different size, but it's still a 14-inch tire. Not a whole lot different. Woo! As long as you seal, I don't care. Do not care. Get in there! Ooh, you are one angry tire. Good Lord. Guess what? Figured out why these tires aren't being used. There's a giant hole in the sidewall. That's it. There's a hole. Okay, fine. I won't use you. About 90% sure this is a tire off of my Maverick that I got running like over a year ago. I don't remember which one it was, but I replaced all four. The majority of them leaked. Let's see if this will work. This one stands up on its own and acts just like a tire with air in it, so maybe it will just hold the car up. This is the literal last 14-inch tire of the opportunities of the ones that I can find that would work. I have more, but they all have holes in them. Okay, come on. good? It's holding there. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate you, old tire. I'm gonna let some air out because that's a lot. So now I'll check it. I do not want this thing to explode. Let's just keep that to a minimum. This tire, hard as a rock, but it'll work. There we go. Okay, let go. Thank you. Woo. There we go. Okay. No cross thread, gang. Okay. Okay, see if it'll hold. Well, it works, but it's probably the most unsafe fuel system I've ever created. We have a supply line going down up under the hood. The wires are just twisted onto the fuel pump, and then a return, stick it up right back in there. Let's see if it'll work, I guess. First, it doesn't have a clutch because it's hydraulic, so I'm going to have to start it in gear and then just go. So I'm going to make sure it runs first in neutral, and then if that goes according to plan, we'll start it in gear and then just take off. Okay, this is going to be a trick here. Just gonna cut the wheel a little bit so I don't hit my truck. Go, go, go. Oh, you can do it. I believe in you. I believe in you so much. Come on. Please. Please. You can do it. I know you can do it. Well, it didn't work. I hate to hurt the car. I made it about that far, and that's it. It really won't run. It just refuses to run whatsoever. So it'll idle, just not that great. So I guess we're just gonna pull it the rest of the way there. I tried. I really did. It's okay to get pulled every now and then. I've narrowed down our issue to injectors. So I'm going to show you a little trick that we can figure out if they're firing or not. And I did this trick, and I don't think they're all firing. So I got the timing pretty much where it needs to be, because I was messing around with it, got it set where I think it's right, and it sat there and ran. It actually cleaned itself up, and I think an injector came back to the point where it started idling better. So I didn't have to touch the gas to make it run, but as soon as you try to touch the pedal at all, it just dies. So I think that it's running lean and injector's not firing properly, or probably 3. So we're gonna pull it up to the shop now. I just really wanted to drive it, just to say that I did. But instead of hurt it, we're gonna do the right thing and bring it up to the shop. That was this close to being catastrophic. Well, nearly almost hit the truck there. So it's okay though. Didn't. The old Nissan is evasive in its sportiness. Oh, is this a Nissan or is it a Datsun? I've seen both Datsun tags on this thing and Nissan, so I really don't know. Comments, tell me what it is. What is it really? I know it's a Z car, but it's like when that odd year range where they were Datsuns, they were Nissans, they were both, they weren't. I don't know. Now what I think was happening was that injectors are not firing, but also firing and trying to, because as I was trying to get this thing to start and go up the hill, I put it back in neutral to make sure that it could idle still, and it did, except it was like it was picking up a cylinder, it would drop it, it was like it was trying to. So what I did, I took a screwdriver here, placed it on the base of the injector and stuck my ear up to it, and I could hear a clicking noise. It's like just a consistent clicking. And what that tells me is that that particular injector was firing. Now, some of them didn't. I don't remember which ones did or did not, so I'm going to do that again and just listen to hear what clicks, what doesn't, and then the ones that don't, we can take them apart and then just see, can we clean them, can we make them work, is the plug even firing, you know, what could be the problem. So let's fire it up again and then test each injector. Nope. Yep. 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 So this injector back here is not firing. Pull the one that does fire, it doesn't want to run. What I'm going to do now, we'll pull the plug out, and I have this thing called a Noid light. All it is just a little 2-spade light, and what it does is whenever power passes to this plug here, it'll light up basically like it's firing the injector. So we're going to see if we're even getting power to this one or not. doesn't help that the cable's broken here. Can I get it to work shoving that wire in there? No. Well, let's break out the power probe and see if we can make this work. So first, let's check the injector itself. So what I've done is taken the ground of the power probe and attached it to one spade here, and then on the other spade I'm going to apply 12 volts. So the fact that I see a ground coming out of the other side is a good thing. So I'm going to do 12 volts and listen for a click. I hope you can hear that, but listen real close. I can also feel a click too. So that tells me that the injector is in fact operable, at least to an extent. So I'm going to fire it back up, do the same thing with the power probe, and make sure that power is actually getting to that wire. Because this cable here is broken. Looks like it's pulled out of its connector. So we might have to rig up some kind of new way to make it work. I don't know if I can pull those connectors out of there. I might be able to. But this other one is also on its way out. So let's just see if we have power coming to it in the first place. This is the best it's idle. We can continue to do that. It's getting 12 volts there. What about right here? It's getting 12 volts. It's just not to that one wire. I reckon is it a pulse or is it constant? Let's see. So it's just getting a constant 12 volts. Look. It just can't fire this one. So let me see if I can plug this back in. I'm going to apply 12 volts to the broken one. I don't think it's still firing. Well, that was the end of that test. It'll do that sometimes. It'll just idle, clean up, get worse, get better, get worse, and then it'll just die. So, I don't know. This cable is broken, but the wires are still getting power. But even whenever I applied 12 volts, it wasn't getting anything. So I just wonder, I really need to figure out how it works, I guess. Because I assume that, you know, one gets 12 volts and the other creates a ground, and that's when it knows to fire the injector itself. So how do I make that happen is the real question. Ow! Woo! Okay, I just get shocked through my entire body. It went from this thumb to this thumb, so that hurt. I'm gonna go read a book and figure out how these are supposed to fire. I just don't know if it's like any different than any other kind of injector, or how do they do it in this model. You know, I just want to make sure that I'm doing this thing right. So check out what I found. So you know we have this broken wire. Listen to how the idle changes when I shove this wire back into the connector. That injector starts firing, right? I take it back out. Put it back in. Sounds a little bit more healthy now, doesn't it? So what we may do is, since we figured that out, we can replace this connector altogether because it's also broken. So I'm just going to replace it. I think they're like 10 bucks for a new one. So we'll just cut this one back, fix it, and then make sure all the other connectors look okay. It looks like some of these injectors have already been replaced, but it sounds better. You know, we're going to play with a little bit with the timing. Maybe some of the injectors aren't firing like fully. You know, they might need some cleaning up. And as we let it warm up, I can't let it run for like super long just because, you know, there's no coolant and I don't want to run it for like super long. But what we can do as it warms up, as it circulates more fuel, it'll clean up the fuel rail, it'll clean out the injector, and hopefully as time goes on, it'll start to get better and better. But that's a very good improvement in idle quality just by picking up that last injector. So, you know, maybe the spray pattern isn't perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than what it was running like whenever we first got it to run. So we'll get a new connector harness and go from there. Well, our old fan belt has certainly seen better days. It's destroyed. And I hope that it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that the water pump bearing isn't doing so hot. But I've got a brand new belt here, so we're just going to throw this on, tighten up everything, and adjust all the belts properly, and just hope that we can engage the water pump at that point. Because if we can do that, we'll fill up the radiator and check for any kind of leaks. The core looks okay, but I don't know about the underside. Now earlier, whenever I jacked the car up, I noticed that the bottom of the core support was dented in already. So I jacked the car up there too, and little did I know, but the radiator's right next to that. So it already had a huge dent in the radiator. I'm hoping that that didn't like break anything. If it did, then we're gonna have problems. But for right now, we're just gonna, you know, pretend like we didn't see anything and put a new belt on. Just did a little quick fix on this injector wiring, soldered these two together, and then heat shrink. New connector, it was like $10 just to go ahead and replace instead of trying to fiddle with that broken one. So hopefully all this works out, and it looks a whole lot better than what it did. So we'll wrap this up and make it look a little bit nicer and test it out to make sure it works. But on top of that, I actually bought some new plug wires because some of these, like this one here, chewed up. It's been sitting here for a while, so we're going to replace all these, and hopefully that'll help it run maybe a little bit better. We have our plug wires on, we have our injector fixed, and hopefully it'll idle a little bit better. We're going to get it at least up to operating temperature now, because I'm hoping that that'll help but maybe free up an injector or two and maybe clear out some things. We've circulated enough fuel through here that I hope the fuel rail is clean on its own, but you know, it very well could not be. So on top of that, I filled up the radiator with straight water. We're past freezing temperatures here, so you know, hopefully it won't be an issue, but I anticipate something's going to leak or the radiator is just not going to work. But you know, that way we don't waste any coolant. And it actually held water, so you know, not bad. And once the thermostat opens, if it does, we'll add a little bit more. So let's fire it up and see if it runs any better. I was just a little bit curious about whether or not I can make the clutch or the brake system just work enough. So I got to put it in the car, and this is what I see. Frame rail, delete. This right here is the worst side of the two. So this is where the frame rail is supposed to go, and it goes along right up into there, and then in this area, it's just gone. So there's about maybe a 3-foot section where the frame rail has just completely disappeared. So even if we did get this car to run and drive, it is not safe to put back on the road. That doesn't mean we're not going to have a little fun with it before we do that, but my budget just got cut probably into a quarter of what I originally had planned to do with this car. Unfortunately, but hey, that's how the world goes. Well, the past couple days I have been racking my brain trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with this 280. And I've been reading and looking at all sorts of forums, you know, kind of explaining the symptoms, and you know, it's kind of hard to say because sometimes the symptoms change, sometimes it won't start at all, sometimes it starts, idles great, sometimes it doesn't idle at all. And here's what I've kind of figured out. I think that this is possibly the root of all of our problems. So on these forums I keep seeing a mention of this AFM. It's an air fuel meter, I believe is what it's called. And what it is, it richens and leans out your mixture. So I popped the cover off here. You know, you just got this little adjustment here. From what I understand, this slide here will lean or richen your mixture. Let's start the car and just see how this impacts our idle. Set it right there. I have to loosen up that screw. We're going to set it right there to see how happy it is to idle. Maybe it'll start up a little bit better. But if I let it go completely, we get that issue again. What I guess happens is this screw right here, there's a spring on the inside of this, and if it loses its tension, then it loses the adjustment. So we're going to back this screw out here and try to just turn it up and see if that helps anything. Well, that fix cleaned up our idle. And what happened when I revved it, this wouldn't move. Now, for what I understand, this works on load from the engine. So all these cracks that were in this boot right here is a problem. So I taped all this up with electrical tape to see what happens now. Now you can rev it. Now we're going to have to for sure fix this a little bit better. But it revs, it runs, it idles, it does a whole lot better than what we had before. I had this spring a little too tight, so I backed off right here, loosened it up a little bit. Now watch. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not going to pretend to act like I even know how this thing works or what all the details and intricacies of are, but it works. So as this thing revs, this thing has to spin over this way. So just to recap, we adjusted this, I guess this is to richen up the mixture on this screw right here. Turn that up a little bit, idle cleared out, and then this spring, I tightened it up a little bit, but I tightened it up too much. So when I loosen it back up, this thing is able to move freely. Now, all these vacuum leaks right here are going to be a problem. We're going to have to fix that permanently because this thing runs off of load from the engine, like I mentioned. As air is drawn through here, this valve opens up. So we need to fix this and make it look a little bit nicer. Well, now that we figured out how to make this thing run a little bit better, I need some redemption. So the clutch doesn't work, but I want to drive this thing. I really would like to see it move under its own power for the first time in a very long time. So to do that, I've got this new clutch master cylinder and this new slave cylinder to activate the clutch. Hopefully it's okay. I mean, you saw the transmission at least can go in and out of gear. I'm just really hoping that the clutch, the pressure plate, can disengage and actually work. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and at least get this to where it can move under its own power, because I'm sick and tired of having to push this dang car everywhere I go. We have to where it can run and rev and idle properly. So if we get the clutch working, I don't see why it wouldn't be able to do a lap around the yard. All right, out comes the old. Oh, wow. That is really bad. Look at that. This is probably where the seal itself has like just fallen apart. I mean, this is just kind of doing whatever it feels like, while this one a little bit tighter, but I mean, look at that. That's pretty bad. So all this is just corroded and falling apart, so we're going to chunk this one, get a new one in there. Well, there's our new slave cylinder and the hydraulic line to go with it. Everything seems to be working. I just bled it, so let's go ahead and see if we have any clutch functionality. Start it up. I don't really know what the deal is, but you saw right then that even whenever I had the clutch pressed in, it still would not fully disengage the pressure plate. So my guess is maybe it's stuck, maybe something's just not working, but everything is replaced on the hydraulic clutch mechanism itself besides the actual clutch. So, maybe there's not enough pressure. I've bled it every other way that I could possibly think of. There's no air that's coming through the line. I don't know. So as you can see, I had enough pressure to disengage the clutch just enough, just that much to where it would slip into gear, and then the back tires would spin without like grinding the gear or nothing. But it's just not usable. It's not. So I don't know if it's going to need a clutch. I don't know if it's something else is wrong with it. So we'll just have to kind of like figure out what the deal is. But for right now, we can't drive it. But hey, we made a lot of progress today regardless, and I'm proud of that. Now, it has been a roller coaster of a video today. We didn't have it running, we did have it running, and then it ran worse, it ran better, and then all of a sudden it didn't run at all. But we figured out a lot, with a little determination and, not wanting to give up and actually trying to research and figure out what the problem is, it can take you a long way. So we had to learn how this fuel injection system worked on this old 280ZX, and we got it to run. It's been sitting for 15 years, and it runs just like it did the day that it probably was parked. And that's something to say for it. I'm pretty proud of how good this car runs. Even though we can't drive it yet, I'm still pretty proud of it. Now, I don't know what we can do from here because those frame rails are pretty bad. I don't know if we can actually drive this thing on the road, but maybe a race car, maybe like a rallycross kind of thing, maybe something like that. I don't know. If you guys want to see something like that, if we get this video to maybe 20,000 likes, we'll get a part 2 going. We'll fix the brakes, fix the fuel system, get the clutch figured out, and heck, make a race car out of it or something like that. So guys, again, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like I said, and if you want, subscribe, turn on those notifications because it really does help me out and it helps you guys not miss more content like this. So I appreciate it. Order your t-shirts and your stickers. There's more of these coming soon. We're just working on a new system to get that figured out. So please be patient with me on that, but I do appreciate you guys and your continued support because you guys are the reason I have the ability to do stuff like this right here. So again, thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.